Hello, I'm Patrick and I'm from Belfast in Northern Ireland, and I'm here at the Manifesto Poetico laboratory at the Lecoq School in Paris. So it's a 5-day kind of laboratory focusing on spatial dramaturgy and looking at the 4 kind of dimensions of space in particular. So looking at that from a movement point of view with the body, and then looking at the space and the architecture and how that is constructed to create a narrative. So I was here last year, I came to the workshop last year in Paris, and as a theatre maker and as a writer and a director, the kind of the practice that we look at as theatre makers is how do we make theatre relevant, important and integral to our society. And I think over previous years, theatre kind of, especially in Ireland, it kind of has falling numbers. You know, it's very, very difficult to get people into theatre because of, you know, technology, the fact that people are looking at virtual reality, augmented reality, and kind of flat screen television for, you know, for the entertainment. And I was kind of looking for a theatre form that would give me all of that, but also make it very essential of the live theatre performance. And so last year when I attended the first workshop, I felt quite liberated by the fact that in this space there was potential for anything to happen, for different worlds to be created, just by manipulating and focusing on the architecture of that space. So that became really exciting to me, because I felt then the theatre became really important, and that there was it was put into a very special place, that we need this because this is a form of theatre that cannot be captured by any other art form. Because it's about the imagination. It's very much focused on the artist's imagination and the audience's imagination. I mean, something that Carlos said today was stop imposing on the character, stop imposing the story on the audience. Let the audience feel it and just give that suggestion. And I think that's really important, because theatricality needs to be inventive. It needs to give us a sense of why we have the imagination in the first place. And I suppose in this world, what I'm finding over even the past couple of days is that giving it a space is making it feel alive, and making it feel incredibly important to have in every single community centre, in every single theatre, in every single town and city. It just feels that this is the place where the imagination can explode. But the most important factor is the audience's feeling and imagination, which I think the ecostructure of the elastics serves that purpose. I mean, it's a brilliant experience to have people from a very different culture, a very different understanding, completely different language, and being able to focus on the same themes and to understand that we all experience those feelings, such as love and anger, and to see us come together and kind of explore and discover that. I think it's probably one of the most important factors, that it's not just a one-sided kind of point of view, that we all have the art and the imagination all in common, and I think that's beautiful. If I ever said, you know, okay, that's me, I'm finished, I understand everything, I get it now, you know, I think that's really dull and it's not interesting. And I think as a theatre maker, you always need to be exploring, you always need to progress and look at different angles. Otherwise, you just become a limited kind of point of view. I loved last year because I felt free. And I think that's one of the main things you want as an artist, is to feel free. Even though there are huge complexities and huge limitations to the line, to the form, you know, but the way that's delivered, I think, is what makes it so beautiful and so vibrant. It's because you know that the people who run Manifesto, Carlos and Paige, that they really care about the exploratory nature of what they're trying to do. And so when you feel that in a room, then all you want to do is explore that as well. There are no answers, you know. I think this year coming back, I find that I'm thinking a lot more, because since last year I have made like 5 pieces of work, and I'm looking at how last year has influenced my thought process, and then I'm looking now at it in a more refined way, I think, because I'm looking at it from a writer's point of view a bit more, going, well, how do I write this? How do I write this world? You know, how do I How do I take aspects of this and be able to put that on paper, and how do I explore that as a writer? I think that's kind of coming through my head a lot more about the narrative. And I think as well, when you're in this space, it's a big space, it's an epic space. So you're not dealing with the minute daily conflicts, you're dealing with the big issues that we have. And currently our world is going through quite a huge flux of issues and challenges. And I find in this space, because it's so poetic and so big, that those issues can be explored creatively without it being daily or one-sided. So last year, after the first workshop, I was doing some research in Manifesto Poetico, and I came across their kind of trans-poetical projects, in particular dealing with the epic border kind of stream of thought processes. And because Northern Ireland is kind of going through the Brexit kind of fiasco, I can say that, it felt that Ireland is such an interesting country because we're always dealing with a border. We're always dealing with the sense of, I'm this person, you are that person, and because of laws and old kind of mindsets, we can't get on. And it was through this kind of exploring this eco-structure, I felt that this would be the perfect ingredient to explore borders, boundaries, both personally, geographically, but also in terms of Brexit, in terms of what we're going through at the minute, that it would be such a brilliant thing. It's kind of, it has developed, from then, because then obviously, the company I run, we got funding from the Arts Council, and having kind of really good kind of conversations with Carlos and Paige about the nature of Northern Ireland and also how they work and their practice. It became a bigger thing for me that they were really excited to come to Belfast and to work with the art sector there. Not to come over and go, this is how to do it, but to get the artists to actually feel nurtured and excited and inspired by their practice to then go out and make their own work. We have a vibrant art sector in Northern Ireland, and I just know that what will happen in Belfast in October will inspire the artists, but also the impact that's going to have on years to come, about people thinking just in a very different way. It is about creating a hub, and a hub of potential, and a hub of empowerment. And I use that word quite heavily because I think as artists we're constantly devaluing ourselves, and to be in a room like this and to feel empowered by that process, I think, is critical. But I think that's just going to be the beginning of what we've brought together. It has to continue. The borders aren't going to change, over the next, year or two. So I think it's definitely a piece that needs to be brought to a bigger platform. But also I think it's important, one thing I've really felt is the support and development that I've had from Carlos and Paige, from running a company in Northern Ireland, to continue that discussion, to continue that dialogue, so that we're always kind of working together to make sure that the artists in Belfast are also, there's a huge responsibility in it, and that's what I really feel, is that it's not just about going to Belfast and working with artists and leaving, but actually it feels like there's a very important care and nurturing that's needed from companies like Manifesto to other companies across the world, that it's not just a drop off, see you later, thank you, that actually you go, no, we have given our time to look at this technique and this practice, so I want to see where that goes, and I really felt that with Manifesto even from last year, that it doesn't feel like I'm here for 5 days and bye-bye and I'll take what's needed. It feels like, okay, I'll explore, and then also I'll talk about it again and I'll continue the dialogue rather than it being a full stop. I think when you look at it, it's an intellectual thing. So you can watch it and you go, that works, but I don't know why that works just yet. So when I found that when I stepped into it, I felt like it was there, that it just happened, because there's complicity between, the other performers, the manipulators, and the audience, that you can sense this kind of, I want to play it, but I'm not going to impose what I want, because I can't, because the elastics are moving in a particular way. So I think it's trust. And I last year there was one I think it was one afternoon. I think I felt I really trusted the entire process. I stopped thinking about what it was, what the whole technique was, or what I was doing in the space, and it just felt like just let the space happen and let the story happen in that space. So I don't know. I think there's been lots of elements where I felt, okay, yeah, that makes sense, that lands. But I think it has to be an experience rather than a textbook. Okay, these are the three different forces. I think you have to be in it to see what it is. But I can say that when I had been in it, it felt probably for the first time in a long time that I felt very free. And when you're asked to play in a space, there's usually, there are kind of limitations, there are provocations and instructions, and they're there. But also, I think something happens because it's playful. It breathes in the room. It's a very hard question to ask because it's very much about being in the experience and being in that space. And then when you're in it, and then you remove yourself from it, and you're watching it, then you can understand the artist's process, the manipulator's process, because they're working in a kind of complicit nature to tell a story. Bigger than me. It's bigger than all of us, because you're suddenly in a poetic world where it's metaphor, it's abstract, and every time I have a go in this space, it's always big themes. It's not mundane. It feels like you want to grab something, and you actually want to create a piece of work, to create a moment where it has an impact. And I think it comes back to feeling, that you. I mean, even today there was a little bit moment where immigration came into my head, and that was because the lines were everywhere, and it became a very clear moment where I felt like this is a time where I could actually explore that, rather than starting in a space that has no limitations or kind of definitions of line. It makes the audience feel clever. I think that's one thing. That's one very, very powerful thing, that when you transpose the space in different points, from different points of view, suddenly you start to see moments that feel very personal, because you go, she's talking to him, but his reaction's out there, she's back there, and there's something else happening there that's kind of providing the background to both those narratives. That when you feel clever as an audience, when you feel like that's for me, and it's not do we all get that? I haven't been spoon-fed. I think that's also that's an active engagement from an audience. They should sit up and go, I get that. Whereas a lot of theatre, unfortunately, they sit like this because they're allowed to disengage. They're allowed to not be a witness or give testament to the story. I think that's actually one of probably the biggest ones I feel, is that when you subtly play with space like that, then you've got a room full of live theatre,